Hey guys, happy Wednesday. It's Danielle and Alex for Rise and Grind from the playing field of parenthood, episode 11 coming at you from the same time zone this week, which is new for us. But we're excited we're excited to start a little bit of a series here with some of our convention content. So we got tons of great interviews, made lots of contacts, which we're super excited to follow up on. So if you were one of the people we talked to, then be on the lookout because we're going to have some really great interviews coming your way. But this will be the first one, and it was my interview with Kayla Braud from University of Alabama, and she's now one of the assistant coaches there. So we are going to show the interview, and then we're going to kind of do a recap afterwards from more of the softball perspective, I think, and what you're looking forward to. And you covered a lot of their games last season, so
yeah, sounds good.
We're going to jump right in. This is Alex Gomez. I'm here at NFCA with Kayla Braud. We just finished your talk on outfield.
Yes.
Very long.
50 minutes is a long time to talk.
I mean, we can sometimes do that, but we're both of us going back and forth.
Yeah, you were standing up there and people are staring at you, not a lot of response,
looking at their phones.
I know. You'd think I'd be better at it, after 10 years of TV, but, here we are.
Still throws you sometimes. So, first question, obviously the transition that you've made, graduating back when you did, kind of doing the professional stuff, and then broadcasting, and then coming back to coaching.
Yes.
What brought you back?
I think, and this is going to be really good for you and Danielle here, and it's very works really well with your podcast. But I think the one thing that I wanted was a really, really good work-life balance and a really good family opportunity, and that this job, which came out of nowhere, clicked every single box, and I was really happy with the time that I was going to be able to spend with my daughter and my husband more.
Right.
That was really important to me because. And Danielle knows this. When you travel with TV, you're gone and you're on your own. Your kids don't get to come with you, and if they do, it's rare. And even if they come, they're not really a part of it. They're just kind of an outside factor that's looking in.
Yeah.
Well, what I love about coaching so much is my kid and my husband, they're a part of it.
Yeah.
They go to the games. They know all the girls. The girls treat them like family.
They love it. Yeah.
They love it. So when I found out that there was going to be a way that I could fill my bucket, helping young women, being a coach, being involved in the game in a different capacity, but still doing something I'm really passionate about, and combining that with a better family lifestyle, it was kind of a no-brainer.
The heavens opened up, the lights and everything.
It made sense. And I was kind of hestant at first because I was well, maybe it's not as good as I thought it would be, but it's been really, really fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, pause. I think this is not on. I need the green light.
Oh, so I just talked for...
I think it'll still pick it up.
Okay.
It's just a regular video.
Yeah, okay.
We should be okay. No, that's awesome. And then what does that mean for you? Obviously, the bigger family, the focus on that, and then having it be Bama. What is that like? What is that? How is that just elevated even more because it's home?
So it's home. It's I lived before in Portland, Oregon, which was a phenomenal place to live. I really liked it, but other than my family who were living in Eugene, which is about 2 hours away, I didn't have a support group around me.
Yeah.
Now I have a support group around me. That lives in the same town, and I miss my family like crazy. Obviously, that's the only thing that really sucks, frankly, about moving across the country. But on our staff, we have our director of player development, Ryan Imuri. She was a former teammate of mine. The director of ops, Jaden Spencer, was a former teammate of mine. We won a national championship together. So I have people like that in my corner all the time that helps. I have a village, and it's the most beautiful, amazing thing. I came back to my old coach. So the fact that I was so changed for the better from my experience at Alabama, and now I get to pay it forward to the next generation of kids with my people is the coolest thing in the world.
And it's it's so full circle for you.
It's so full circle. I'm the woman I am today. I'm the woman I am today because of that program, and here I am.
Yeah, because it's changed so much too. So what are some of the things that you've seen that are so different about the student athlete experience now versus ours? Yeah. I'm not going to say how long ago that was because then we're aging ourselves.
No, we don't say that. Wow, some things that are different. I mean, obviously this generation is different, and some people take that as a really negative thing. I don't think it's negative. I think that they have their typical flaws that you're going to get from a generation that's more of an instant feedback, instant gratification kind of type style. But because of that, I find that they work their tails off. I have such hard workers on our team. Like they worked way longer, way harder than I ever did.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I didn't work hard. Like I was in the cages, but these girls, they want to grind for you. They will do whatever it takes. They'll run through a wall. And again, it's not that we didn't before, but they have really good work ethic, which I kind of was shocked by.
Yeah.
And then with that, they have a lot like more resources and support, and I feel like they pour into that. We had great resources, but I think we have even more
It's
now.
so much more holistic now. They're looking at them from like so many different angles.
Right.
Which, like for us, it was like lift weights, go
Correct.
to practice.
Yes, correct.
Like that
Yeah.
was it. And now it's mental, it's, you know,
Yep.
movement.
Yep.
There's so much more
Oh,
involved.
everything is like way elevated. Like even with strength and conditioning, I feel like it was like, okay, you got your hardest day on day one. Like we're gonna burn you out. Like
Sure.
we're gonna make
all
you
the
feel
weights
terrible.
on there. Yeah.
And now they're like, we're gonna work up towards this and like do all the things that we need to do. So in the right order, and they probably are a little bit healthier because of it. But just totally different. And then the amount of resources they have for like mental health, for their schoolwork, for all of the people that are in their corner to help them is really, really cool. But they also take advantage of those resources. I don't know that I didn't.
Yeah.
I don't think I did. I think I had them or had opportunities, but didn't take advantage of them. Like they use them. So that's really cool.
That's awesome. And so now kind of going back to the transition from, you know, playing student athlete, professional, all the things that you've accomplished, then becoming a mom. How has that role sort of changed your perspective as a coach as well?
Oh my gosh, so much. Well, I think this is really cool. The best compliment that I get as a coach now is when a girl tells me like, you're teaching me how to be a really good mom. Like that will surpass. Like when I hear that comment, it's been told to me a couple times, which is like the greatest honor. But when I know that I'm helping them be more than just a player, like sure I can help them hit better. Sure I can help them better in the outfield.
Yeah.
But if I'm helping them for the rest of their life to be a better mom, like that's like the greatest reward in the world. So that's been really cool. I think it gives me perspective too. Like there were days where we lost a series and I'm coming home from that series and I am pissed. Like I hate losing.
Yeah.
Right. Danielle knows that. Danielle knows me. But I like hate losing. Right. And then I come home and my 3-year-old runs up to me and gives me a big hug and smiles like, Mom, you're home. It's like, I can't be mad. Like I gotta let it go. Like, you know that you can't carry your stuff to your kids. Like, so that helps too. And it works with the girls too. So like she'll be in the clubhouse sometimes after games, and if they had a bad day, like suck it up, Buttercup. Like this 3-year-old is
she's looking
at you. She wants a hug from you. Like she doesn't care. She doesn't know what you did on the field. She just knows who you are and wants to hang out with you and say hi. Like so you got to like turn off whatever BS that you had going on and be a better person. So I think she gives everybody really good perspective and gives me great perspective too.
Yeah, you're giving me an idea of like after series, just having like a bunch of babies.
Yeah, right. Yeah, like it's like puppies.
Like,
they have
puppies would probably be a lot easier to get a hold of.
They have our mental health department brings like puppies sometimes.
That's smart.
Yeah,
that's really cool. And again, another piece that's changed just over the course of time. As far as like recruiting and NIL and all the craziness that is the new process. What do you feel like, or what kind of advice could you give to somebody who is like, as a coach, this is what I'm looking for, or as a player, this is what I would have loved to play with?
Yeah, well, it's a chaotic, and it changes every day. So like, I don't know if my advice is good. I think with NIL, I think what we really press at Alabama and what we really want is like, it really is like your brand and your name, image, and likeness. Like we want them to, and we want to support them in figuring out who they are, how that they can represent themselves the best to make like the best impact that they can on the world that they live in, like whether that's social media, whether that's in the community, whether it's like a local business. Like we want to help them, give them the basic principles and foundations to do that. And like we always want them to find success when NIL is involved. Like we are very big proponents of like, we want to help you and support you on this process and guiding. And then I think too, I don't even remember what the question is, but I think navigating as a coach is really interesting because with everything changing so fast, you can't be like all in on it, everything yet, because we might get into revenue sharing. We might get into a different brand of NIL. Like we might, I just don't know. So it's like, it's a lot. It's taking it as it comes and just doing what I can with like the most with the information that we have. Like that's really what I'm going to like stick with.
We just talked about like how the recruiting specifically, how like when we were being recruited or like going through that process, it was like, we were literally like putting a video, physical piece of something into a piece of mail, putting the stamp on it, DVD, address, and putting it in the mail. And now it's like, oh, here's the link. Or go look at my Instagram.
So
like,
crazy.
It's wild, and you know, positives and negatives to that, obviously. But as your daughter gets older and you know decides to play softball or soccer, volleyball, whatever it ends up being, what's one of the things that you feel like will assist you with things that she's going to go through because of everything you've been through?
So I tell people this all the time. Like, I've had, summer ball coaches come up to me like, oh, when's your kid going to start? Like, I want to play in my organization. I'm like, my kid doesn't need to play like aggressive summer ball. Like, she's getting better instruction and better by hanging out at the field every single day. Like, she gets to see our kids. So I think I'm going to be moderate. I think something that I learned growing up, and my dad was really cool about this, and I'm going to follow in his footsteps. Like, he did not make me do anything that I didn't want to do.
Yep.
Like, if I was going to hit extra, I had to ask him. He wasn't like, Kayla, time to go get in the cage. Like, I had to be like, hey, Dad, will you hit me, like, extra balls? Will you throw extra front toss to me? Like, I had to ask him, and that was, like, his hard rule. I will not do anything that you do not ask of me. So I think I'm going to have that principle. Like, I can guide and teach Dylan, my daughter. Like, I can say, hey, like, this is what a traditional kid would do, but, like, if you want that, you got to ask me, and we will do whatever you can. So they think that's something that will stick with me. And then, I mean, she's going to have every resource in the world. She'll have same like your daughters, your sons, like Danielle's daughters, like we're going to have resources. Like, that's not the thing. But I think making sure that they want to do all the things. Like, I'm not going to push my kid into softball. She doesn't want to play it. Like, she wants to do soccer. Fantastic. Like, let's go. I'll figure out how to help you. But I'm not going to, has to be fun. Like, I do not want my kid to burn out. Like, if my kid burns out, like, I've failed.
We failed. Yeah.
Failed.
I totally understand.
Yep. I just want them to have fun, enjoy it. And like, if their goal is she wants to go play collegiate soccer, softball, whatever it is, like, I'll help get her there.
Then we'll push that.
Yeah, we'll push that. But until then, I want it to be fun. She's going to play a bunch of sports. She's going to try a bunch of things. Like, I just, I want her to be a kid. Like, your kids should be kids for as long as they can.
Yeah.
Yep.
Penelope, my oldest, played one season of softball. Did not go well. She's a soccer person. I'm like, that's
great.
Cool. You go do that. It's actually probably better, because if I had to try and like do the softball thing with you, I don't know that we'd survive. I don't know how that would go for our household. That's awesome. And then final, last bit here, how are you seeing the new AUSL League as changing the landscape of professional options after college? How are you seeing that kind of what are you excited about?
I'm really excited because I feel like everybody's kind of in line with the mission, and we're kind of getting all of these different branches going in one direction. And I feel like that's been the biggest challenge with the professional league.
Too many chiefs.
Yep. So I'm really excited that it's like going in like the right direction as a unified front. Like, I feel like everybody's kind of on the same page, and we have something positive moving forward. I think I was really excited. Like, my friend Jenny Dalton-Hill, who Danielle knows really well, I talked to her. She's stoked to be a general manager. So I think there's excitement. I think they put some really, really good people on the coaching staffs and in the GM roles. So I think that's really fantastic. I think it's going to create buzz and excitement for our game. And I think if I can give like our current college players like an option to play afterwards, a better option, a broader option where they're going to travel, they're going to do more things, like, it's going to be so fantastic for everybody. So I'm really excited, actually. I can't wait to see how it goes.
Yeah, us too. And then fun question.
Yes.
You could have one more at bat.
I would hit off of Danielle Laurie for sure.
Perfect. Ditto. I hit a home run
without a doubt. Did you really hit a home run of her? You're so lucky. So I don't think I ever played against her. In fact, I know I didn't ever play against her. But it would be a dream come true to be able to get an at bat off of Danielle.
I told her we're gonna create a retiree seat just for one game.
Yeah, you bet I'd win too.
Yeah, 1,000%. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for.
Guys, we're back. Kayla Braud with the interview. I love me some Kayla Braud. We obviously didn't get the chance to play against each other. She's made it very clear that she would love an at-bat off of me if she could pick one. And then we have Alex throwing it like, I got an at-bat off her, and I hit a home run. And I'm like making lunches, listening to the interview, getting all pissed off, looking up the box score. I was like, wow, I'm glad I'm not playing anymore. I'm so competitive. But now that I really am starting to get to know you, if I could give a home run up to anyone my senior year, of course I want it to be you when we're in Hawaii. So
yeah, I mean, there's no better place. Like I love that stadium. Like, it's so gorgeous. Like, you can just see like the sun, the rainbows that come over because of the rain all the time. It's a really cool stadium, and they've done some really cool stuff recently to it. But we'll talk about that on a different episode.
Well, and not to open up my inner competitiveness, but we did beat you guys 1-0 game one.
Yes.
And I think I had like 10 plus Ks. And then to come back and play you guys again, you made some adjustments. So
We did.
I'm going to give you a round of applause because teams struggled with doing that at times against me.
Yeah.
But Kayla Braud, she's such a real one. I mean, her and I connected together in the 2018 is when I really got to know her. We did the studio stuff. It was the first studio coverage ever for the Women's College World Series.
Right.
One of the coolest things that I feel like I ever got to be a part of because I was still so new to it, right? 2015 was my first year doing ESPN, and then the studio stuff came up, and Kayla Braud was my girl. Like,
Right.
she would calm my nerves. She helped me figure out how to like do it because studio's different than calling games. Like,
Right.
you're on camera
Lights,
for 30
yeah.
minutes
Mhm.
and sometimes you got to learn how to banter and chat and like not be shaky and so many things. So
Yeah.
Kayla and I's friendship really started to kind of blossom, as you'd call it, in 2018. And we got the opportunity to do it for some fun years together. And both our careers in ESPN has been super fun to rely on each other, and we'll call each other and talk about it. And I could not have been more proud and excited when she got the opportunity to coach at Bama last year.
Yeah.
Came out of left field. Like, there was zero, clue that was going to happen whatsoever. And I think the coolest thing from her interview was saying like how unexpected it was for her, but how family fitting it was. And I think when you have children, your life changes. And she was so spot on as far as the broadcasting. It's like you're traveling a lot on the weekends and calling games, and you don't have your kids with you. And it's a give or take. I mean, that's the sacrifice of the job. We're fortunate to have the fall winter where we're not doing as much, right, in the broadcast piece. But when we're in the spring, like every weekend throughout the week, it's prep. And so to hear her sides on making that choice and leap to go back to Bama and kind of give her 2 cents, especially with, let's just say, like, not a lot of coaching experience. This was her first really big opportunity. And I look at Patrick Murphy, and, Bama was one of my schools that I may have made a choice back in the day to go to. And it's for someone like a Patrick Murphy. Like, he really is the most down to earth, like, sweetest guys that I've ever met. Like, you play hard for someone like that. So
Yeah.
I could
He has a really
totally
good soul. Like, you can just tell, like, he's just a good person, which
Yeah.
I just think that makes it so much easier to like run through a wall for that, right?
And I think when you feel like you really can be yourself and you can be authentic and you don't have to change the mold of who you are. Like, obviously you learn and adapt in college and adjustments and things that they want you to do, but he's definitely someone, like, even the statement of this 2025 class and transfer class, like, I'm reading on D1 softball, and his biggest thing, he said to all these incoming, transfers and freshmen, like, be authentically who you are so we can get to know you for that. The goal is not to change you. The goal is to understand your personality and get to know you so you can come here and shine. And that to me is just speaks volumes to who he is. So the fact that Kayla gets to be there, I've met her husband. He's awesome. I've met Dylan. I actually got to see them when I called the Auburn Bama series last year in the 20.
Yeah.
Yes, it was this year, but so it's just cool for Dylan. Like, you think about her getting to be around that team and the impact that both parties make on each other.
It's so
kids.
cool. Like, and then she gets to see her mom shine like that. Like, there is no better feeling than like having your kids on the sidelines and like knowing that they're watching you do your thing. And like, it's a really cool feeling that not a lot of people get the opportunity for. So it's really exciting that, she's got her little village and then some, right? Like, there's so much support there. There's so much like history and familiarity. So it is really cool.
And to have a supportive husband like that, I feel like I could be wrong, but I think he was a police officer in Oregon. Like, she had lived in Eugene for a bit and then she moved to Portland. And I remember seeing her when I'd call games with Pac-12 Network at Oregon. Like, I went to for dinner with her one time before she had Dylan. And so to have a husband that's like, yeah, let's just go to Tuscaloosa, that's a big difference. So she's a baddie. She's one of my absolute favorites for life. I have Kayla Braud's back. And when I really look at, dive into the Bama just kind of year that they had, from the outside looking in, this was a team that I had like, there was no way that I would have put them to end their season in Oklahoma City at the World Series.
Do as well as they did. I totally agree with you. I feel like the Bama that we anticipated at the beginning of the season is not the Bama that came out to play.
And I think there was such a question mark with the pitching department, right? Because you had the transfer, you had, Kayla Beaver who came in, who was great, but like maybe not playing at that SEC level against the parity every single weekend, even though her numbers were good. I think when you come in and you have to play at a high level every single weekend, it requires a different attention to detail on things. So the question for me was, how is she going to be able to perform under pressure, right? You had Brisky, who was a down ball pitcher, freshman, phenomenal. And at times, you don't tend to really see teams ride freshman pitchers out. You have that vet, you have that junior, senior, and then you have the freshman who's kind of able to follow in the footsteps, get maybe one game a weekend, stuff like that. But when I really look at their 2024 schedule, I think the biggest thing to me about Bama, and people can probably agree, is the amount of extra inning games that they got into, right? Like, and I was able to call one of them in 11 innings against Auburn. But I mean, looking at their 2024 schedule, they had a couple string of losses that sucked. They had the Virginia Tech 8-inning loss. Kentucky, I remember that Kentucky series because I had to talk to Coach Murphy after that, and God, he was so pissed. They lost an 8-inning game to Kentucky. To me, what always stands out about him is that like he always has the pitcher's back, and he's like the zone. Kayla Beaver got a laser back at her, and he was scared that it hurt her, but the zone was so small. And he's like, dude, I'm going to go out and I'm going to defend my pitcher's backs until the end. And he ended up getting kicked out of the game. But that was another 8-inning loss. And then they played Arkansas, lost 1-0 in 9 innings. And then it kind of opened up a little bit where they played Auburn and they won that game, and it was 11 innings. And I remember calling it with my partner, Roy Philpott. And I was like, dude, we're in the 8th and then the 9th and the 11th. And it was crazy to see, but they obviously had some experience in that department, right? Like Bama's question mark for me, besides the pitching under pressure, is who's going to be able to step up and get the big hit. Like extra innings is about that. So who is that person going to be? So, and then to me was that SEC tournament. They played LSU and they had that 14-inning loss in the SEC tournament. Back at Auburn, an absolute dagger. And, I think those experiences that the team had throughout the ebbs and flows of what it's like to play under pressure is kind of what put them in the position for that regional and that super to be able to thrive. So they won game 1 of the regional. Awesome. You got to win on Sunday. And then they had that 9-inning game against Southeastern. And that game to me was like, I remember sitting wherever I was. I can't remember where I called. Oh, I was UCLA. And we had it on the computer in there. And I'm watching and I'm just like, dude, like Bama, they can't lose this. Like they can't lose to this team on Saturday and then have to go through the ringer backwards on Saturday.
Exactly.
Come back on Sunday. We know the grind. To do that in a regional is really tough. So the fact that they were able to win that 9-inning game, they could rely on obviously the experience that they had, put them in such a good position for supers. That was one of the most iconic super regionals ever, right? Like playing Tennessee.
Yeah.
If you're betting money in Vegas, guaranteed, I mean, the numbers are on Tennessee with the pitching staff that they had, and Carlin Pickens and Peyton Gottschall, and the senior experience with someone like Kiki Malloy. This was a team that no doubt about it was going to make a push to win a national championship all day. Even I said that. And I coach her sister and I see her parents all the time. And I'm not going to say that they were worried, but when I talked to them, they're like, man, I mean, hopefully we can like get this done. And they couldn't. Listen, the craziest thing is when you lose game 1 and then you're able to come back and beat them twice. That's a different type of swagger, and that's a different type of confidence and coaching under pressure. And Tennessee had them beat game 1. They beat them 3-2. And it was a great game. Kayla Beaver threw a gem, gave up 2 hits, and they still lost. But that 14-inning game 2, that I remember Eric and Madison Shipman were on the call for that one. And I'm texting Maddie Ship throughout. And I'm like, dude, they're going to the 12th and the 13th and the 14th. And like, it wasn't like some exceptional game where it was just somewhat quick, decent innings. Like hitters just weren't able to make adjustments against pitchers. That's really what it like came down to. Brisky started, and then Beaver came in. She threw 10 innings, gave up no runs, 165 pitches. And that to me exemplifies every experience that she went through where there was a question mark if she could deal with pressure. That game was the tipping point of, can I do it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or can I not? And that was a game where she said, get on my back. Let's go. I'm going to ride it out. I got you. And that's what it's all about. And I think that is the most special thing, right? And then they end up coming back, and it was, I mean, besides the fact of Lauren Johnson, which Patrick Murphy talked about this, she has her sister Jenna Johnson on the team, but it was in that 14th inning where Patrick Murphy went down the line in the dugout and goes, who wants to hit right now? Who's going to step up and get a hit? And it was the freshman Lauren Johnson in that 14th inning. She's like, me, coach, I'm ready. Let's go. I'm going to get a hit. Leadoff base hit. She ends up scoring the game-winning run. And you know, her sister was a 5th-year Jenna Johnson, but I remember that being kind of like a cool moment that they went into detail about. But Women's College World Series, they lost to UCLA, beat Duke, and then lost to Florida. Like they did everything they could. This was a team that surpassed everyone's expectations. And I think that's always the coolest thing, because inner circle means more than anything else. Like no one knows your grind as a team. No one knows the ups and downs. No one knows the injuries. I mean, Marley Giles, you look at the impact of a player like that. I mean, she sat out and had a hand injury from March 30th and didn't come back until May 2nd against Auburn. Like she was down. So losing players like that is huge. This was a team that batted 251 on the year. 251 with 42 home runs and only 41 stolen bases. This is a team that, you know, on average over the years, there's 70, 80 stolen bases a year, right?
Easily. They're always fast. Always.
And that's the difference. And Patrick Murphy made the point. He said, hey, if I have a basketball team of 3-point shooters, am I going to make them anything else other than what they are great at, what they do? No, but we got to get some speed. And that, I think, is the biggest, that's the biggest difference when you're heading into the 2025 season, right? Like, they lost Kenley Cahalan. She's going into her junior year. She transferred to Florida, which as soon as they lost in Oklahoma City, she entered the transfer portal, which was crazy, which is also the weirdest part of this whole game, right? Like you can go and have such a good ride and make it to Oklahoma City, and it's like swaggy and we're like having the time of our life, and then you lose and you're like, yeah, like Kip style, peace out, you know, Napoleon Dynamite. So kind of looking at the 2025 season, I mean, we're 59 days away from college season opening up, which I think is super cool. And game 1, going up against my dogs. Which
what a way to
kind of
just like come out swinging.
I mean,
have that as your first. And sometimes I feel like that's hard because like preseason, I mean, you've got like the Clearwater Invitational, you've got the Mary Nutter, like you've got such big tournaments where it's all powerhouses up against each other. There are these huge matchups that you see at the beginning and then at the end of the season, right? When it gets to postseason. And so it's so cool to watch that grow, hopefully, right? The growth and the difference in the team that you face in the beginning versus at the end. But there's so many there's just so many question marks in the beginning. Like who's going to step, like you can have as much of an idea from fall ball as you can get from stats and scrimmages and fall games. But then once you get into like, I don't know, season, it just changes people. Like you could go in with this ideal 10 girl roster starting lineup. And then all of a sudden you realize, okay, this person it's not working. Like something changed. And so I love those preseason games, pre-conference, because I feel like it tells a lot about the identity of the team and their ability to persevere through all the craziness of preseason. Like you've said, like you go tournament after tournament after tournament to prepare for conference. But how are you going through that adversity of the travel, the weather, the ups and downs, the people that, the injuries, like you said, and how are you going to take that into conference when push comes to shove and you have to place, right? You have to be at the top of that standing. And with the SEC, they have the tournament. So you end up getting 2 bids, right? You get the regular season and then the tournament bid. But I just think it's going to be really interesting to see how that kind of plays out, especially starting with Washington. That's going to be.
Yeah, but listen, Washington is not the same team that they were. It's a growing period for them too. Like they lost, they returned, I think 3. So I think they're still going to have to figure out their identity of what this team is all about. They are so new. And when I, listening to Kayla Braud's interview, I think the coolest question that you asked, like the difference in the athletes and coaching from the generation of the players that we were and what we were all about to now, and how different in NIL and all the things. And it kind of stood out to me. She talked about like the amount of work that these young ladies are doing. And when I think about that should be the focus when you're grinding in a season, because at times the struggle is understanding when the numbers aren't going up, right? Like how am I weekend to weekend able to cope with going 0 for 20 or 0 for 15 or have a hell of a weekend and the numbers still not being what I want them to be? There is this different attention to detail for these athletes than there was back in the day, right? Like you want to perform well. I want my average to go up. I want all of those things. So when that's not happening, what's the sole focus throughout the week? And that is the one reason why I think they are very fortunate to have someone like Kayla Braud on staff. Obviously, they also have pitching coach Lance McMahon, who is a great hire. Because I think Kayla is so good at being able to like relate to these athletes to the point where it's like, I've lived it, I've played it, I've won at the highest level. I got you. Like, let me help you throughout this process. But more importantly, understand, like, you got to learn how to grow through failure. If we can't do that, we can't succeed as a team. And to be able to have someone like her, I think is such a gift. From everything even that she's got to experience through the analyst lens, I think that it makes you see the game differently because you see how hard of a game it really is to be successful. Like that's the damn truth. It is harder now than ever with video and video analysis. Too much. But looking at the Bama 2025, like they travel the first 2 weekends out. They go to Arizona. They'll play UW. They'll play Arizona, a couple other teams, and then they'll go to Clearwater and play in that tournament. And then this is a team that like hosts back to back to back to back weekends. And they have the Bama Bash, T-Mobile, Crimson Classic, that spring break showdown. And then they get Mississippi State in March 14th, and they're hosting and starting to go SEC right away. And I think one that I have circled is they're going to be hosting Oklahoma this year for SEC. And I think like there's some really cool different ones. Like even think about like UW is hosting Nebraska with Jordy Ball, and they're going to be making their way out here. Like just seeing the difference in how these conferences have had to change and now adapt and travel. And like, that's a big matchup, bringing Nebraska to the University of Washington, bringing Oklahoma and the SEC to Bama. Like you are playing in the Rhodes House. It is tough.
I'm literally getting goosebumps because when you step inside that stadium as a player and you just see the crimson, like it's so overwhelming. And those fans are so dedicated. Ruthless is probably a better word, but there's nothing like that state. Like obviously Oklahoma City is Oklahoma City, but playing at Bama is it's tough. It's beautiful facilities. They take care of their teams. And I think that it's an amazing legacy that they have there. And so I think Oklahoma obviously can relate. Like they have an amazing fan base as well. But it's like when you put those two things together, it's going to be a good game. Good games, multiple games. It's
good experience.
Yeah.
Getting to people may not like going to go play in those hostile environments, but I think the beauty is like you get to see what you're made of in those types of moments. And that's, if you want to try to be a team that's standing at the end of this, there's just different pressures and situations you got to learn to deal with. Right. And I think when you get the chance to play in that type of like that environment, it kind of opens your eyes to a whole new world for sure. So, and I do know SEC, Georgia's hosting this year. They got that brand new facility, $38.5 million facility, which is one of the, I very much hope that I can be there in person to see it one time this year, because it really is a one of a kind type of deal, right? So that's kind of the Bama 2025 scheduling. And then as far as like where the team's at, 11 returners this year, 5 transfers, 4 freshmen, and a couple standouts that I have that I wanted to talk about. They have Caitlin Riley, pitcher, 2-way player coming from Ole Miss, who I think is a good addition to the pitching staff. And you're losing someone like Kayla Beaver, who had over 200 pitched, right? Like we have to be able to bring someone in. You have the senior Emily Weinstead. She's from UNC Wilmington, also a pitcher. 31 and 22 throughout her career. Bringing in those types of pitchers too, I think is awesome when you get the chance to work with Lance McMahon. He's so good. He's very personable. And I think he's going to kind of help them evolve into better pitchers. And that at times can be the one beauty of when you do choose to transfer. You maybe connect with a coach on a different level where you're like, snap, they're really able to get X, Y, Z out of me that maybe I didn't have my first 2 or 3 years. So when I think of someone like Lance, he definitely can like open that piece up. They have Salyn Hawkins, Mississippi State transfer infield. She was a stud, 294, had 26 ribbies last year, but that's a big transfer pickup for them. They have the senior Brooke Ellisted from Louisiana. Huge. I mean, 398, had 9 home runs, 54 ribbies, led the team last year. You need a big like you need someone that like when you step in the box, there's a fear factor. And that can be the one thing. And I said this to, I think, Kayla Braud last year with Bama. There was, if I was pitching against Bama, there was no fear factor. Like I wasn't like, damn, I'm scared to play this team because they got some big boppers. They didn't have the Bailey Hemphill, who was, you know, the stud a couple years ago and has obviously graduated. Like you need a hitter or two that when they step in the box, they can change the dynamic of the game. And adding her from Louisiana, I think Brooke is going to be huge in that piece. That's a big pickup. So that's going to be big. Alex Papillo from Northern Iowa is going to be huge and was one of that last transfers. And then you have, which Murphy did say, bringing in freshman Audrey Vandegrift. He said electric speed, highest exit velocity on the team. Like stolen bases are going to go up. So with the addition of power and the addition of speed, and then you're bringing in those pitchers with good in-game experience. To what Ailey Johnson was able to do last year with Bama. She got some good innings for sure. And then you had Brisky. Like she threw a lot of great innings and a lot of pressure-filled innings. And I think that's one thing that Patrick Murphy and Lance McMahon really did was like, yeah, we have Kayla Beaver. She's going to throw a good chunk of our innings, but we can at least say that we're not like, we are giving Brisky this type of experience because we know she's going to potentially be our ace next year.
Right.
And you can't necessarily rely on one arm anymore because then you leave your team hanging the following year if you're not able to pick up people from the portal. So Brisky's huge in what she was able to do. And then adding those 2 other pitchers, I think is a really big deal. And I don't know, I kind of get anxious, excited every single year that softball kicks off too, because I'm like you see how teams continue to evolve. It's not always how you start. It really is how you're able to kind of finish and step up. And, you know, once you get into conference play, the heat turns up, right? There's just a different type of mental piece that you need to be able to grasp because it sucks. It's hard. It's the hardest stuff that you kind of go through, especially right now, the SEC, there's no place like it. So every single weekend.
Aside from the fact that the conference play is like, these are teams that you play every year. So they have your stats. They've got your phone number. You're also playing them multiple times a weekend, right? We're talking 3 or 4 games for every conference series. And that to me is where you see the biggest clashes, right? Is like somebody can come out and win game one and then get swept. We were talking about the super regionals, right? But it's the same thing in conference. Like I feel like in the SEC, every conference series is like a super regional, right? You're just like, you're having to go out there with your best foot forward every single game. There is no chance to catch your breath. Like you can't start slow. Like you just have to come out swinging. And that's, I mean, I'm excited for the conference shifts because I think there's going to be more of that throughout the other conferences. I think that it's really diversified. Like you talk about this, I feel like in the past, it's been Bama's identity where, like you said, you're as a pitcher, you're scared of every single person 1 through 9 in that lineup. I feel like that's been their MO, and it's shifted so much. I feel like in the last 3 to 5 years to where people are spreading out. They're not just going to the one school. Maybe it has to do with the transfer portal. Maybe it's just, you know, hey, I want to be the person that brings up this no-name school that's never been a part of the postseason or the conversations, and I want to be the one that leads them. You know, I'm sure there's tons of different things, but it's so cool to see that sort of there are more opportunities, I feel like, for you to go up and beat somebody like Bama or, you know, UW or, you know, it's so cool to see the underdogs pull it out sometimes. Like, obviously that's what we were at Hawaii. We were the underdogs throughout the season, right? Like it was never on anybody's mind that we would ever do what we did that year. And we go to a place like Tuscaloosa to play a super regional where they're ranked 1 and we're ranked 16. We have like our 2 little rows of green people like cheering for us in the middle of that stadium. We lose game 1 by a mercy rule. And then we came back and won game 2 and forced the game 3 on Sunday. And it's like to see teams claw back like that at like, I don't know, I don't want to say it's like against the man, but it's like against the rankings, against the predictions, against the betting or like whatever the odds are. I think that's what is so cool about this game is like we can make all these guesses at who's going to come out on top, but I feel like there's so much shuffling that it's almost keeping it so much more interesting to watch and see.
You and I
ready to go.
You and I are similar. 2010 was your senior year, right?
No, I was a sophomore.
Okay, so my senior year was similar road where super regionals we played Ricketts' sister Kaylani. And we lost game 1 at home and then had to come back on Sunday. We lost on Saturday, come back on Sunday. And that's when we had to play 2 games in a row. But even force where you get an additional day, we had to play back-to-back games, which is a crime when you have one pitcher. And that was one of the, still to this day, one of the hardest experiences to like personally go through as a pitcher because you know you're in it for 14 inning plus on the day. It's not one inning at a time. And as much as I tell pitchers all the time, like you have to, it's one pitch at a time. Your senior year, when you're 23 years old and you've been grinding and doing this, you have that mentality going into that day of like, shit, someone's coming out and winning and someone's coming out and losing. And I have to pitch my ass off for 14 innings to give my team a chance. Against a really tough freshman in the circle in Ricketts.
That lineup was, I mean, Amber Flores, like,
she's
Chamberlain,
still,
right? Like, I just.
Chamberlain wasn't there when I was there, but I will say I made the commitment to myself when we played Oklahoma day 2 to put Amber Flores on base every single time. We were beating them by so much. I want to say it was like 4 or 5-1 or something in game 3 that her last at bat I threw to her. But I said, this is the only player. She had the 3 home runs off me in game 1. This is the only player that has my number. So at the end of the day, I got to tip my cap and say, all these other 8 hitters beat me. And if she gets on and they bunt and they score and they get her in, awesome. But I have to hang my hat on like what's comfortable. And I liked that I had the ability to like feel those feelings and know that, because I think sometimes you have this MO as a pitcher where it's like, no, I'm better than them. Dude. Sometimes hitters got you, and you have to be able to respect the game enough to say, hey, I'm going to put you on and I'm going to attack the next hitter. Put my ego aside.
That's huge maturity on your part too, because as a freshman or sophomore, you might not have approached it that way. But as a senior, it was like you knew, like, hey, I need to just accept like what this is, and the best thing for my team is to tip my hat, which is, I think that says a lot about how much growth you had as a player.
3 home runs in one game. 3 home runs in one game. That may be like, I think I might have made history with that. I don't know if that's been done. No, actually it has. Danielle Gibson had 4.
Didn't she have 4? Yeah, I was
runs.
going to say.
All right. But I don't know if it was all off the same pitcher.
We'll look it up.
Dang it.
We'll have the stat ready next time. The last thing I do want to mention about the interview that I loved about what Kayla said was when she talked about Dylan, her daughter, and, you know, as she grows up and like what she's like, I'm not going to pressure her. Like, I'm going to take, like, if she wants to play, great, I'll help her. If she doesn't, then it's okay. Like, I think it's so hard as athletes, like for us to accept that like sports might not be our kid's thing. And I think it speaks volumes about her as a person that she's not just like, yes, I have to be, like, she has to be in something. I have to push her into softball. Like, I think it's so honorable. And it just shows, I mean, she said like people have called her a good mom, and that means more to her than people saying like you were a great player. And like, how cool is that? Like how, like we're in this whole new phase, her included. And it's like, the biggest thing we're proud of is like how we're raising our kids. So
no, well, it made me think. I was like, damn, I took Maddie to the cage Saturday and it was a hard ass session. And then I'm starting to like overthink it, because there's definitely times where I'm very different than that.
Where you're saying like, if you don't want to go, it's okay, we're still going.
Yeah, like, well, she had to miss her team practice and had, you know, a hell of a day yesterday. Like I said, we drove 3 hours for soccer and 90 minutes there and back, and a basketball game. And her team had a 3.5-hour practice in Tacoma, which is another 90 minutes from us. And I was like, you know, I'm going to opt out of this because she has this tomorrow. We're going to go to the cages and we'll go get in some work. And it's like, we pitched, she kind of had a bad attitude. And I had to remind myself like, hey, this is when at times we can clash, and I need to remind her that we're coming here to work hard. Attitude is a choice. Effort is a choice. Finished strong on that. We did grounders, and then I threw BP and I finished, and I said, hey, we're going to run. And tears coming down her face. And I look at her and I'm like, Maddie, if I look at soccer right now and I look at basketball, the weakest link, and I hate how honest I am, and you know, some may love it and some may hate it. I said, your weakest link is your fitness with your basketball and your soccer. You get too tired, too quick. And then all of a sudden you like kind of stop playing at your best. And I said, these are the moments after we just worked out for 90 minutes where I'm going to run with you. And I just did sets, you know, the length of the cage, jog there and back, 75% there and back, and then sprint there and back. And then we rest a minute. And I had her do 10. Not that hard, but to her, she couldn't get past that she had to do it, and her eyes.
And another thing,
and she's crying, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like, "Hey, homie, we can do this. Like, you can do hard things in basketball or soccer where you doubt because you may be tired because of your fitness. These are the little things that you remember in the moment. Okay, I've been able to push through and do it, and go past that point of I doubted myself, but I did it, and I'm over the other side, and I remember that, right?" And in basketball yesterday, it was probably the first time fitness-wise in a while where I've seen her like be able to play a whole game, except for 3 minutes because she could have almost fouled out. But the whole game, and she was able to kind of play and keep up fitness-wise. And like, I don't know, basketball is so hard when it comes to that because it is non-stop. So I loved hearing Kayla say that. It made me question myself to a point. And then I have to rethink and remember that everyone is completely different with this process. So hearing Kayla and how she goes about her business can impact someone greatly in how that's how they want to go about it. And maybe opens my eyes to, hey, when kids need a break, I got to make sure that I'm there to give them a break. And I do.
Yeah.
But it definitely made me question myself.
It could literally take like something random. And I'm like, shoot, should I be doing this? It's so hard because they're coming at you from so many different angles too. But I think one of the things too about like your relationship and like pushing Maddie and like working with her also comes from, you know, how good she can be. And she's already shown those glimpses of greatness. And so you're not going to let her disappoint herself in that. So I feel like that pushes you too. And that's stemming from a good place. It's not stemming from, I need to push her into this because she needs to be good. It's stemming from, I know she can be great and I know she wants to be great, but it might take a little bit extra work that she's not always going to be open to. So I think it comes from a good place. So that I think you should feel good about that piece. You're doing it because you see the potential and you see those glimpses. So don't be too hard.
And in a sport of failure, the one thing that will take away from the athlete is if they aren't mentally capable to deal with the failure.
Mm-hmm.
Success will come. If you work your ass off, it is a game of karma. It's a game of respect. You work hard. If you're a pretty good athlete, things will fall. The cards will fall where they will fall. But if I notice anything from coaching at this level, the one thing that takes away from the athlete is if they mess up, there's hints of doubt. I don't believe that I can do it. I don't think that I'm the one for the job. I can tell the body language on defense or when they step in the box that they aren't ready to go. So the one thing that I feel like I'll pull from my athletic experience and mine only, the one thing that quiets any of that noise is always, I've checked off the boxes and done hard shit, harder shit than most want to even do, to allow myself in the moment to know and accept that when I fail, I'm going to be okay. Right. Yeah. Which tends to always be the hardest thing about sport because it's wicked competitive. Everyone's numbers are on Game Changer. Everyone's seeing everything.
Mm-hmm.
So to be okay with failing, knowing that you have supportive parents to be like, hey, bro, we're good. Let's go to the cage. We'll get after it.
Yeah.
Because you will fail. I say that to her all the time. You will give up home runs. You will mess up ground balls. Everyone's going to be looking at you next play. How do you react? What's your mentality? Where's the accountability? Hey, that's my bad. I got you. Roll me a ground ball. All the things. So like trying to instill that level of confidence to be okay with messing up instead of becoming, you know?
Yeah, it's tough, man. But we're learning. We're getting there. And
yeah, I just hope that I don't look back in 10 years and go like, did I F her up from being hard on that piece? We all have that question, right? But I don't know whether or not you choose to make it big in sports. There's a lot of tough life lessons I feel like that you learn throughout the grind
that will help you. Yeah.
So regardless of the path that athletics takes her or Audrey, life's tough. So how we choose and learn to deal with the shit that's thrown our way will be the biggest thing that we are learning. And hopefully if you be good, want to be great at sports, awesome. But that's not always the end goal. It's the time that I get to spend with her doing those things.
And teaching her stuff. Yeah.
Teaching me. And that kind of makes me more proud than anything, I don't know.
No trophies, no skull. Like, it's not about that stuff. Like, that would be great. It's like a little bonus at the end. Like, woohoo. But it's the daily stuff. It's when you see them overcome something, when you see her bounce back and do something great, like over time, like, there is no replacing that outside of the grind that is sports. So,
yeah. Amen. That's all I got.
That's what we're ending on. That right there that's it. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Like we said, episode 11, we'll be coming at you with a couple more really great interviews, previewing the upcoming season and talking with some greats and legends. And we're super excited about it. So subscribe, like, comment, let us know your thoughts if you guys have questions. We're here, but have a great week.